It's got to be a surprise. Yeah.
So I think that would be considered a conflict of interest. I mean, while it would definitely save money, I think that would be considered a conflict of interest. You know, it makes sense, but yeah, I don't even think they could do that.
Probably authorize it.
I can see the police department.
You want to come down and paint the building for free. There's a conference. Like and stuff like that. Trees and stuff.
Council all set? First, you guys ready? Good evening. Thank you for coming to the Town Council meeting for Tuesday, September 2nd. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item, please. Yeah, she'll go there.
Councillor Garrison?
Present.
Councillor Lunt?
Here.
Councillor McTevier?
Here.
Councillor Bickford?
Here.
Councillor Ward has been excused. Councillor Pesky?
Here.
Councillor Brunel?
Here.
Next item, please.
Good news and recognition.
Open the floor for good news and recognition. Nothing on that side. Anything over here? I did go by the track on my way here. At this school, it's making a lot of great progress, so if you haven't, swing on down through there, and it's really looking good. See nothing else? Next item, please.
Public hearings, we have none. Next item would be audience participation for agenda items. Please use the microphone at the lectern, state your name and address for the record.
I'd like to open the floor for audience participation for agenda items only.
Dot Fitzgerald, Lisbon Falls. I'm assuming that this is pertinent to an agenda items. You've got planning updates. Back a while ago, Ross Cunningham with Positive Change Lisbon had a public hearing with realtor business owners and developers, and they were saying that developers, when they're looking to come into a town, look at roads. Our roads are in deplorable condition, and we're spending money on a Route 196 master plan, and we have one of the highest taxes in the area. I would hope, I've been car shopping, I've been driving around Richmond, Bodenham, all the way up to Turner with the last week or so, and they're redoing roads everywhere. And yet here in Lisbon, with our roads in really, really bad condition, I'm assuming that this falls in the planning updates. It would be really, really nice to see some progress here in town along those lines.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Good evening, Debbie Berry, Lisbon Falls, Maine. My question is regarding two items. Agenda number 8, order number 2014-181, order treasurer's stipend. Has a financial impact statement been provided for that yet? I haven't seen anything on the town website regarding, is that an overlap of duties, redundancy? Do we need to do this in this fashion, in this manner? Thank you. The other one was number 9, other business, under planning updates. Anything that's being proposed here, unless it's budgeted for, I would strongly recommend that we don't entertain anything that's going to go to a bond. We can't afford another bond. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Willett, Budget Document Technology, Lewiston, Maine. had some questions on agenda item or some concerns. The agenda item is 2014-173 on the IT and photocopier RFP. The RFP was written in such a fashion to tie in IT services with the replacement of 2 photocopiers in the town. It's the first time I've seen that in the town of Lisbon. I did question that. I did have a meeting with the gentleman that was handling it, Mr. Latham, last Tuesday, and it looks like they're trying to consolidate some services. I certainly can appreciate that. It was kind of, the openings were open today, and I did ask questions back on last Tuesday of, is there any possibility of a split award? It sounds like that's a pretty, at least at that point, was a pretty non-discussion, that they really would like to get that combined. Prior to looking at some openings today, it looks like it may benefit the town. I realize this hasn't even been presented to council yet, so I don't know if I'm speaking too early, to be honest with you, but just some concerns as how it was written. And then later this afternoon, I was asked for many of my references. We have been doing business with the town for close to 25 years. My business has, and I thought it was kind of pretty short notice to get my references more on the IT side with appointments that I had this afternoon also, and I was not able to provide those. So I'm not sure what the outcome will be here tonight on the vote on that. But I do have those references available with some time. I asked for a little more information on the current contracts with the current vendor, so I could see what the scope of work would be to the winning vendor on the network side, and I still haven't been provided that to be able to answer the questions in an intelligent manner. So.
What was your last name again?
Willett.
Willett. And what company are you with?
With Budget Document Technology.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other audience participation? Seeing none, next item, please.
Is audience participation response?
All right. What I'll do is go down the list from what I have here, and when I'm done, if any other counselor has anything that I forgot, feel free to pipe in. For DOT, so about the roads and the bad condition, as you saw tonight, we are going to be, I assume, voting on some paving to be done. But one of the things that we always struggle with is every year with the budget, as you know, you come to all the meetings, is that's a big number, and it's the first thing that in the past council, and this year we did the same thing, we went after it. But as you know, from looking at the budget, we did add money into that account this year, and it's the highest that it's been for the past several years. So we as a council do recognize that our road condition, and we're doing what we can to address it, but it's not something that we can just pull out of our back pocket and make sure it gets done, so we are working on it. From Mrs. Berry, for the treasurer's stipend, that has been discussed last time. I believe I was actually the one that brought up the reasoning why this has to happen, but I'm sure later on in the agenda we will be having more dialogue with that. And for the planning updates, I'm not aware of anything that will be going to bond. I believe this is an update to see where we are with planning in those stages, but there'll be more dialogue later on. And then Mr. Willett, I do believe we'll have more dialogue with this later. And I have wrote down your questions. I'll make sure to get with the partner with the town manager to make sure we get your requests taken care of in a timely fashion. Anything else from council? Seeing none, next item, please.
Is the consent agenda. Any counselor wishing to have an item removed may do so now. Order 2014-169 to approve the minutes of August 19.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
I do have one item for that. What I typically do with the minutes is I go through and I watch a council meeting and compare the minutes as we go. One of the things was with the, trying to think what it was,
There was a
personnel change. I didn't see where Councilor Brunel's vote went through, so I want to make sure that that was clarified.
So would you like to amend your motion to change that vote, 2014-159 personnel policy revisions, to reflect Councilor Brunel's vote?
I wasn't even sure what Councilor Brunel voted because I didn't see a hand.
Correct.
Okay.
Did not show my hand because I was voting no.
All right, perfect.
So it will be a no?
Okay,
Yeah, we
so-
can do that. Is that an amendment?
Would someone offer that amendment?
I'll offer that amendment. Second,
Okay.
whichever.
I'll second it, sure.
So we'll need to vote on the amendment separate and then vote on the actual motion, correct? All right, so any discussion regarding the amendment to reflect Councilor Brunel's vote to make sure that's correct? Seeing none? All those in favor? All those opposed?
5.
Am I supposed to vote on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would it be a yes, you are in favor of it?
Correct.
So it'd be 6-0?
Perfect. All right, and now for the motion to accept the minutes for August 19th.
As amended.
As amended, yep. All those in favor?
6 yes,
Perfect.
0 no.
Thank you.
Pass.
Next item, please.
Under Council Orders, Ordinances, and Resolutions, Order 2014-170, grant acceptance for the Recreation Department.
All right, so before us, we have a program through the Center for Disease Control and Department of Health and Human Services for a $250 grant that will be used for after-school programs. I do believe the rec director is here, if he has anything he'd like to add to this.
I'd like to answer any questions you might have
Perfect.
about it.
But do you have anything you want to add before we discuss it?
Just that this is the toolkit that we've been working on for like the last 6 months. Basically what it is, it's an after-school recreation program to inspire kids and families to eat healthy and be more active.
Okay.
It's a really organized program. It's got about a year and a half's worth of activities, and basically what this grant will do is we'll purchase something that will inspire more activity. Equipment has to go towards equipment.
Okay.
We're looking at maybe disc golf chains or something like that we can put out behind MTM.
How many years in a row have we got this, or is this the first year?
Well, we just joined with Healthy Androscoggin maybe 6 months ago to be part of this 5210 program. And so being that we just adopted it, this is our second $250 grant. Basically what it is, if we are part of this program, it's almost automatic that you receive it. You sign the dotted line, sign the contract.
Okay, perfect.
We didn't have to jump through any big hoops to get it, in other words.
All right. Any other questions from council for Mark? Nothing? All right, thank you, Mark.
All right, thanks.
All right, so at this point, I would offer up open the floor for a motion to accept the $250 grant.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
6-0. Order passed.
Next item, please.
Order 2014-171, the paving bid award.
All right, Ryan, do you have anything for this?
Yes, in the packets, had a copy of the RFP that went out to Glidden Excavation and Paving, Harry C. Crooker and Son, Lane Construction Corporation, and Pike Industries. And we received 3 bids back from Pike Industries, Glidden Excavating and Paving, and Harry C. Crooker. And the low bidder appears to be Pike Industries. So we'd like permission to award the paving to Pike Industries and start working on that list that we presented to you when we requested permission to go out to bid.
And for Pike Industries, that was at $98.25 per ton, correct?
Well, there's a couple different materials there that we'll probably end up using based on the individual roads, and the plan at this point is to move forward with the operations manager and the foreman from Pike, or superintendent, I'm not sure what his actual title is, but same gentleman we've been dealing with years. We'll drive the roads together and confirm which is the ideal material to be using on each individual road. But the first 3 roads on that list were going to be just overlay roads because they were shimmed already. So they'd be the 9.5 material at $98.25 a ton. But we also may, depending on, like Ferry Road may be an option where we would go with the 12.5 millimeter mix, which we would put down in one lift. We wouldn't shim it over. They would just do one lift, and that's $89.75 a ton. So we'd like to award, the paving to Pike based on the chart that we provided to you. So we can do whatever we need to do is in the best interest of spending the money as wisely as possible.
Perfect. Any questions from council for Ryan? None? Anything over there? Nothing? All right. Thank you very much, Ryan. All right, so I open the floor for a motion to accept the paving bid.
I'll make that a motion.
Second.
Okay, second, first and a second.
Make sure we specify it's this bid from Pike Industries for, the price listed here. Okay.
Want to add that into your motion?
Yeah, well, I was looking at Pike Industries. Yes, for the bid for the Pike Industries.
Perfect. So we have a motion from Councillor Bickford and a second from Councillor Garrison to award the bid to Pike Industries with three different pricing, 3 different prices per whatever they decide they need to do with the operations manager. All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Next item, please.
Order 2014-172, the dump body installation.
You'll be seeing a lot of me tonight. We did go out to bid for the installation of the dump body on the new Peterbilt cabin chassis that we ordered several months ago. We sent the RFP to CN Wood Company, HB Fairfield, Messer Truck Equipment, and Viking Sives. And you can see we received 3 bids from HP Fairfield, $52,999, Messer Truck Equipment, $59,636, and Viking Sives USA for $44,710. And we're recommending that we award the installation to Viking Sives, and they just happen to have moved into Lewiston, right on the Lewiston-Lisbon line. So instead of driving up to Skowhegan where we've gone in the past, this will be very convenient. We're kind of excited to have them right there in our backyard, and obviously their price is pretty much all we can afford anyway. So.
From, with your experience, why is there such a large price discrepancy between the 3 different companies?
I'll be honest, I can't tell what the biggest difference is there. The mechanics and I have gone through all the specifications, and everything's pretty cut and dry. I mean, we went out last year for plows, for a replacement plow, and it's the same deal. Viking was quite a bit less expensive than HP Fairfield, who we've done business with for years. And I don't know if it's Viking's really trying to get a foot in the door, because they haven't sold us a whole lot of stuff over the years. But and again, I don't know if it's their location now. I really can't speak to that with too much confidence, I guess.
Okay.
You used Viking last year?
We did to buy the plow that we bought, because that was just basically, it was in stock. We went and picked it up. HP Fairfield did the installation of the new dump body that we had installed last year. Yes, we had one done last fall that was put on. So
you was happy with Viking, what you dealt with last year?
What we've dealt with so far, this will be our first installation with them. And it's kind of unique because we're supplying our equipment to them to put on, and then they're supplying us with some new equipment as well. And again, I couldn't tell you. I mean, HP Fairfield helped us originally when we were working with the insurance company to try to figure out what this was going to cost, and this came in even above the numbers that they originally provided us when we were seeking our reimbursement from the insurance company. So I really can't speak to why the price discrepancy.
Ryan, why do we need a new front plow blade and wing?
Well, quite honestly, because there's some of them that need to be replaced anyway. We've got some really tired pieces of equipment, but the fact that we can get a new plow, a new wing, it's a new hitch mount, and then some of the hitches, we were talking about that today, some of the different plows that we have can only go on certain plow mounts. So the whole idea was we're buying a brand new truck. We should set this thing up with all brand new equipment, and it's well within our budget that we have, so that way we've got a good piece of equipment for the town to last for quite a long time.
So we're going to be able to use the old plow and wing on something else?
On something else, or we'll use it to cobble parts off. We have, once we knows what happens here, we've got at least one more plow that we'd like to replace, and then it's going to be a matter of picking off what we can salvage off the other ones, and then scrapping out what we don't need anymore, because there's some that have been kicking around for years that are they've been patched just too many times. So.
All right, any other questions for Ryan regarding the bid? All right. All set over there, perfect. All right, so this time I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the bid from Viking chives, $44,170.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Thank you.
0, order pass.
Thank you. And the next item, please.
Order 2014-173, server upgrade and copier replacement bid award.
Hello again.
I don't even know where we want to start with this one, because, I mean, this is not cut and dry. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to come up with a way to bid what we were looking for. And I'll give you a little bit of the history. Currently, we're under contract with SimQuest. They provide all our IT support for pretty much everything. I explained it a little bit today to one of the vendors, that they pretty much supply the support from where we get our internet coming in the building to the keyboards that everybody sits at. They manage and support all that equipment. If we have new users, they create, you know, all the stuff that's on the server. They deal with all that stuff. Whenever we have a hardware problem or any sort of issue, we go through the support portal on the website, tell them what the problem is, and they take care of it. And we've had this relationship for several years, and we've honestly had the relationship with Nick Knowlton, who's our primary contact since we installed servers for the first time here, which was back in 2006, I believe, 2006 or 2008. I can't remember exactly. No, it must have been 2008 because they're 6 years old. So we needed to replace the server. It's something that we probably should have done last year, but it was one of those budget items that we put off another year because Nick helped us put it off another year. We needed to replace the copier, and we've run into issues in the past where the copier is provided by another vendor, and when we've had network connectivity issues, we've been charged a service call for them to come out and make, you know, do whatever we've needed to have done. And the more and more we get into this stuff, the more and more it's all connected. And the thing that we wanted to do this year, especially with the copier, as we try to create more efficiencies, is the integrated fax, where the people working the front counter, if we get an incoming fax, can look at it without printing it, so we're not printing paper just for the fact of all they've got to do is verify that they have the proper insurance and whatnot. So there's going to be even more connection to that, where it's going to replace a color printer we already have and just be basically one unit that 90% of the people in this building function off from. So it's one of those things that we can't afford to have go down, and we can't afford to have one vendor say it's their problem, another vendor say it's another person's problem. So our goal is to try to go out and get one complete package, and that's what we tried to do. We're keeping in mind that we already have a support professional that we're not replacing. So they're going to be responsible for managing whatever's here for hardware. So again, it's hard for us to figure out a way to just do this, especially with our constraints of the purchasing policy that we have. So we tried doing it the only way we could do it, where specify the equipment and have the vendors that, based on that equipment and the environment they were installing it, to be able to provide us with their best estimate on labor and whatnot. And we've got a whole gamut of prices. If you look at the hardware stuff, which is the spreadsheet that I handed out tonight, the hardware is all fairly consistent in pricing. The biggest difference that you'll notice is the copiers themselves, and SimQuest provided us with a lease purchase option, which the RFP indicated. And it may not have been extremely clear that that was what we were looking for, but we were looking for a lease purchase. Each of the vendors did provide, you know, an option for us to get financing from banks or whatnot. And then when you get into it, the labor part is really where the prices are really big discrepancies, and that's primarily, I think, because SimQuest has been here and they know exactly what we have and what we need to install, and it most likely is unfair for another vendor that doesn't work here on a daily basis to try to provide an estimate on what it's going to cost to install it. But in the same respect, I don't know, I'm open to any other suggestion on how we could have written this a little bit better, but again, we were trying to get what we feel is the best product for the town, and based on the prices, I really don't know what to recommend. Other than that, when it comes to where we are with our current support, contractor, and what we've had for service from them, I have no doubt that whatever we do, if we stick with them for the whole project, we're not going to have any questions. If we start buying parts and pieces from elsewhere, I don't know what we're going to end up with. So I'm usually pretty good about giving a recommendation. I really don't know what to say at this point.
Any questions from council?
Have you had trouble in the past having two different companies, one dealing with the copier, one doing networking? Has there been a problem with that? Or?
We've had some concerns. I mean, we get some additional charges that we wouldn't have expected. And again, I mean, that's based on the existing contracts that we had. Moving forward with a different contract, I can't say that it won't be a better situation. I'm just saying that where we're at right now, it's something that's just another one of those things that it just makes it a little bit more difficult. But again, I don't have the right answer. Sorry.
So we could split the bids and still work.
I mean, quite honestly, if it worked out well, what I'd like to see is that we were to purchase the copier from PCCI, both of the copiers, at that price, and have SimQuest do the installation and support moving forward with everything else.
Would it be possible to put this back out to bid as two separate bids, one for the copier hardware and another for the network and system installation? I mean, that might be, it would give businesses that aren't necessarily qualified to do all the server stuff the ability to bid on the copier, and you'd have more competition there, I think.
We can do whatever you'd... Our biggest problem is that we wanted to get the copiers already.
Yeah.
Been a problem. We've had to have a loaner in here that's costing us extra money, so that's why we kind of did everything at once.
Go ahead.
I would like to table this and bring it to a workshop as soon as possible. I want to discuss it and amongst the council and see if we can come up with because I'm not interested in spending that kind of money when the low ball is $10,000 less or more.
Would you have any objection to going to workshop, Ryan?
Personally, I know what other coworkers are going to say to me, but the copier is a problem.
Don't worry about them. Just
I'm just telling you.
Ryan,
yes.
Do you have a warm fuzzy about this? Does this give you a warm fuzzy at all? It doesn't sound like it to me. Then I would say no, we need to table it and either go back out for a different bid or a workshop, something else.
I mean,
if you don't have a warm fuzzy.
I mean, I do, but I don't have necessarily I don't know if it's the appropriate warm fuzzy. I mean, I'm comfortable with who we have currently, but the price is just, I can't.
That's kind of steep.
Right. Has anyone in the town departments had issues with SimQuest and their operations and maintenance of the system before?
We had some issues at the beginning, and I know who you're talking about, and I'm willing to bet that if you were to go to speak with that nice lady, she would have nothing but positive things to say now, because we have, for the most part, I mean, at least the interactions in the last year or so have been considerably
Okay, well,
better.
I've heard differently fairly recently, so
Okay.
Maybe you need to check in with her again.
No, that's fine. I'd be happy to talk with her.
Yep. Do we have problems with the service we're getting? I don't know. I want to spend a lot more money on them until they've worked that out.
Well, we'll have to discuss that, because I know what you're talking about, and that's not something that they could fix. I mean, I guess is the point.
So it sounds to me like we have a general consensus that we're not welcome to or willing to move forward with this bid, and we want to move this to a workshop for more discussion. Does that sound good?
Good.
All right. At this point, I did see that Mr. Ouellette had his hand up, and because he's a vendor, I would like to welcome you to the podium.
Thank you. I'd like to address a couple things that Ryan did mention, Mr. Latham. I did look back as far as charges, because we have our own RES department also, and support, and Microsoft certified engineers on staff and support this. I looked back in the charges that Ryan mentioned back on Tuesday, as soon as I left the meeting with him. We have charged the town once in 6 years for an IT services call. That was $125. We were asked to come in and set up scanning on 2 more new PCs. That's the only time in 6 years we have done that. That's above and beyond our scope of work. From my understanding, I don't know what the exact excuse was their IT vendor at the time. I think it was the transition when Mr. Nolte was not with SimQuest at the time. He was still on his own, was not available. I'm not positive. So I just wanted to clear that up as a fact. The second fact is these machines are 6 years old. Actually, the one in the police department is 10 years old. It's been parts have not even been available for the last 3 years. We've kept this equipment running for 3 years with some of our parts machines. There's over 500,000 pages on that machine. There's 1.4 million on the one here in the town hall. That was installed almost 6.5 years ago. We've done our damnedest to keep that going, and we have had to put a loaner in now twice. I did ask last year to try to get some money in the budget, and it just was not there. So I come from a service background when I started my company, and that's one thing that we are very proud of. So as far as in my ideal world, I think when you're specialists on the copier side, you're specialists on the copier, specialists on the network, you're specialists on the network. Vendors can work together. We have done many networks also. I'm willing to provide Ryan these references. I was asked that. I think when I left the meeting about 3 o'clock, that last email came in. I had appointments today also. Be glad to get all those references if we go to that road. So I did do a separate tabulation I'd like to hand out to council for if they do have workshop or anything, because looking at the quick numbers I'm seeing here, I don't think it's been tabulated out over a 5-year period. So I'd like to hand that out and leave it behind, if that's all right.
Sure, when you're done, you can give it to our town clerk.
Yeah, great. And at this point, that's all I have to say on this subject.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
May I respond, sir?
Sure. Go ahead.
Just want to clarify that I'm primarily talking about the servers here, being 6 years old. The copiers are something that I was working on with Jody, and I can't answer some of those questions, but they were concerns that she had expressed. But when it comes to the servers, that's primarily what I'm talking about. The copiers, it's not really what my chief primary concern was, but just so we're clear that I'm talking about 6-year-old servers. That was it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi there. Excuse me. My name's Nick Knowlton. I'm with SimQuest. We currently provide the IT support for you folks. The one thing I guess I would like to point out is, obviously there is a major discrepancy at the labor. We have a lot of history here. I know exactly what needs to be done. I installed the servers that are sitting just behind the door here 6 years ago, I believe. So I think for comparison's sake, I would highly recommend we do apples to apples. I understand the workshop will probably be a private thing. If it's open to the public, I would be glad to do a deep dive. Okay. I'd be glad to do a deep dive, especially on the labor portion. I'm not a copier guy. I can't speak to that. I could certainly bring somebody for that as well. But on the network side, these numbers they're not equal. Especially also looking at the hardware. Some of the specs were not met. So I just want to make sure we take a look at that as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, this time I'm going to close the participation. It does sound to me like we have a consensus to go to workshop. We don't need a vote on that, correct, Twyla?
No, you just move this to a new agenda item. Sure.
Perfect.
Go to workshop.
All right, we'll move it to a next agenda item. Under Council Communications, we will set a date for that workshop. Next item, please.
Order 2014-174, Mill Street Culvert Lining Bid Award.
Now we can get back to something that's a little easier. A couple of years we've talked about lining the Mill Street. There's a culvert on Mill Street that ties into the Ricker Farm Trail, and during our installation of that trail, we had identified, actually the foreman climbed up and really took a good look at it, that that pipe needed to be rehabilitated in some sort. It's in a very deep section of the road, guardrails both sides, and so with the sewer, we've had some really good luck with slip lining, cured in place pipe for sewer lines. They do the same type of work for culverts, and so we went out to bid to get prices on doing that same kind of rehabilitation to this culvert. We sent it out to Eastern Pipe Services, Lane Inliner, and Ted Berry Company. Eastern Pipe Services came back with a price of $23,200, Lane Inliner with a price of $39,000, and Ted Berry Company with a price of $18,900. And we recommend awarding the project Ted Berry Company for $18,900. We've worked with them extensively over the years, and this will be, they just did our last, they did a pipe burst for us. So we've done several different new technologies. This is actually a little bit different than some of the other linings that we've done in the past, so it's going to be interesting as far as I'm concerned to watch the whole process, but that's it.
Any questions from council?
Just one. That's a pretty big difference between your high and low.
Well, the Lane Inliner
ideas.
Company, I think you got copies of all they were charging $15,000 just to move their equipment here. So the actual pipe installation work was $23,000, I think. $24,000. And it speaks a little bit to the different processes that they use. That is actually like a sock that they pull through the pipe, and then they blow it up and fill it full of water, and it heats it up and forms to the inside of the existing pipe. And this, they're actually pulling a 24-inch pipe through a 30-inch pipe, and then they grout all the way around the new pipe, so that way it fills any of the voids in between the 30-inch and the 24. And we'll actually end up with more flow capacity with the 24 than we did with the old 30-inch corrugated metal pipe. So this will require a couple day or half a day, twice, some of the shutdown of the road, and we'll coordinate that with the school to make sure that we try to do it when it's most convenient for them and try to get traffic coming down 196 for that time frame. But we should be able to work that through if that's acceptable.
Perfect. Any other questions from Ryan, or for Ryan?
No.
All set? All set. All right. So I'm going to open the floor for a motion.
Make the motion
Second.
to accept the bid from
Tedberry.
Company.
Barrier.
All right. So, motion from Councilor Bickford, second by Councilor Mativier, to award the bid to Tedberry for $18,900. Any discussion? All those in favor?
6-0. Order passed.
Next item, please.
Order 2014-175, East Coast Greenway designation.
Diane or Ryan, do either of you guys want to?
Ryan, do it.
You're
on a roll.
I don't even have anything. Well, as you're all aware, the Lisbon Trail system we've indicated is a part of the East Coast Greenway, which was the intention all along in the plan. The Paper Mill Trail portion was officially accepted, and I believe the Ricker Farm portion was officially accepted. And so now we're requesting permission to have the Androscoggin River Trail portion included in the East Coast Greenway. So there's an application and a letter we need to send, and we just wanted to make sure that was all set with you guys.
Could you explain to us what the East Coast Greenway is?
Right. It's basically a bicycle pedestrian route from Florida to Calais, and there's different on-road, off-road, and they've basically mapped it out so you could ride your bike technically from Calais to Florida. We actually had a lady that came and visited us and rode from Calais to Rhode Island this summer and stopped here to talk to us about signage and whatnot. So it's really, there'll be identifying markers along the trail, and just that way if people that are following it can connect. It's already pretty much laid out through Lisbon, like Pinewoods Road and Village Street, and then I think it went out Webster, and then down the Ricker Farm to the Paper Mill Trail, and then along 196, and this will just get it off to the Androscoggin River Trail down to the falls.
Are mile markers by any chance part of the trail system?
In what respect?
Posting of mile marker or distance markers on the trail?
I believe that there's a grant
Okay.
that's been obtained to install those, and I'm not sure if that's part of the planning update or if that's another night, but.
I was asked that question by somebody, and
Well, we have requested that they provide us, because with their paperwork, they like to show off, but we'd like to put one at the boat launch that shows that you're X number of miles from Calais and X number of miles from Florida. It's just kind of cool. But they did indicate that they will provide that for us, so just
the
waiting
reason
to
I
receive
ask
it.
is the vendor down at the boat launch is asked repeatedly how far it is from boat launch up to the other end of the trail.
Depending on which way you go, it's 1.78 miles from the boat launch to Davis Street, and then it's 3.35 minus 1.78, whatever that works out to be, one the other way.
Ryan, would you like to get into
Sure.
Sort of off topic, but
that? No, that's okay. As part of our Healthy Main Street grant, and for the implementation of the grant, mile markers are included in that, and we are looking to do that. The other thing with the mile markers is at our last ATRC policy meeting, it was brought up that when you look at trails in the communities, one of the aspects of looking at the trails is safety. So if somebody is walking on a trail or biking on a trail, and if they have an accident or get ill or something happens, how are they going to tell somebody where they're located? So we will be doing mile markers. They're going to be engraved in granite, and they'll start every half mile, and starting at Lisbon Falls, coming up through. They'll also be part of our resource guide that the Healthy Main Street group is doing, and they'll be marked on there, and the comm center and everybody else will know that as well. So if somebody does call in, they'll know exactly where they're located.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you, Tracy. All right, I would entertain a motion, or I would open the floor for a motion, I should say.
I'll make that motion, except to have them send a letter in.
I'll second it.
It's word.
Okay. We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Okay, perfect. Next item, please.
Order 2014-176, easement for Randy Curtis.
Diana Ryan.
I'm going to have Ryan do that one.
Hey, I'd rather be here one night and do it all. As part of the Androscoggin River Trail design process, we were obviously very involved with abutting landowners, especially in obtaining easements. And we worked with Randy and Karen Crafts, who own, just call it the Big Dipper, because that's everybody knows it. It's 501 Lisbon Road. And they had indicated they'd like to see pavement between the building and the trail. And some of the original conceptual design showed that, but when all was said and done, the final slopes did not allow for that to happen. So there's a gap between the building and the trail that's all been loomed and seeded, which was part of the design. And they would like to see that as hot top. The town does have an easement. It actually, our easement goes right to basically right to the edge of the building, which is what we obtained. So we have the option of doing that if the council's all right with that, but that's something that we would look to do in the spring, and we'd have to work with Randy to really figure out how to make the grades work back there. And I'm not sure, I don't know, I mean, they had asked us, Randy had come in and met with the town manager and I, and with Roger, and had asked us to bring this up, so it's one of those decisions we'd like to bring to you folks and have you weigh in on it. Let us know what your thoughts are, I guess.
Now, this is, you would do it in the spring of 2015. Is that for manpower purposes, or?
At this point, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything from council?
Ryan, wasn't there a price, we were talking, it was a price discussed, like, what, $2,500, something like that, you thought it was going to do?
I meant to do that today, and I had too many other things on the agenda.
It wasn't a lot of money.
It shouldn't be. I mean, we're not talking about a huge area, and we'll have to work with Randy to, I mean, and I don't know how, I'm really not sure how far we're going to be able to go, because I'm not sure how deep his foundation is in that location. So one end of it would be no problem. It's when you get down towards the lower end of his building, we'll really have to work with him to see, what we can accomplish there to satisfy his requirements or requests, and for us to be able to have something that's easy for us to maintain.
Any questions from council for Ryan? All right. Thank you, Ryan. Yep. At this time, I would open the floor for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And your motion would be to go ahead and allow the town manager and Ryan to take care of this in the spring of 2015. Is that correct, Roger?
Yep.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none? All right. All those in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Order 2014-177, state surplus property equipment purchase.
Hello again.
I really didn't plan to have this one, but the timing was right. We went up to the surplus property building in Augusta to try to find some equipment for the Public Works garage as we're going through the remodel. And we were there, and they've got a 1995 Champion grader that was used by DOT up in the northern part of Maine. And it's been there since April of this year. They weren't able to sell it at the last auction, and they've had it out for public auction and not able to have any luck. The mechanics have poured over it a couple times now, looking at it, and we feel it's something that would be a benefit to us here. And quite honestly, after talking to the entire crew, because we had basically had everybody weigh in on it, and they were all in support of me requesting that we go buy this grader for us to use, because turns out we sorely missed the one that we had, even though it was a 1974. That was in pretty rough shape. But it's one of those items, I don't know how you go out to bid for a used item like this. We have looked online, and you can find some comparable equipment for that year, make and model, but most of it's down south, and that doesn't have some of the winter stuff that we would want. It's not necessarily all-wheel drive. I mean, each one is a little different, but Kennebunk, I believe, bought a mate to that one that had been completely refurbished up in Limestone, and I honestly haven't had a chance to discuss with them how they've made out, but all indications are this would be a good purchase for us, and we had budgeted money to do something along these lines. We had a couple items, and there's one of the next items on your agenda pretty much is the last few items that we were looking to try to improve the equipment that we have. And this is something that we'd like to, I want to say we'd like permission to go negotiate purchasing it. Because there's still some questions that we'd like to have answered and whatnot, but based on the timing from our meeting and whatnot, I just wanted to get input, see if it's something that you folks were on board with. And
I'd like to, do we still lease from Williston?
We still rent on occasion, and that's, I think if we had one in-house, we would use it a lot more often. There's still a lot of, when we've used it in the past, the only thing we've rented it usually for like 3 or 4 days, maybe a week. It all depends on our work schedule. And they'll go out and grade the gravel roads, but we're really not cutting back the shoulders that we need to do, reestablishing ditch lines and whatnot, stuff that I think if we had access to a grader whenever we needed it, that we would be able to do a much better job at doing.
Basically, I'll tell you, I'm not in favor of buying it, but if the council will go along, you can go out, make your best bid, and find out more about it. Maybe find out how the one that mate to it was.
Yep.
And then come back, and then we'll discuss it, if that's all right with council.
They didn't give you some sort of ballpark figure about it?
They gave us a price of, they have it listed as $38,000, which was back in April, like I said, and they've had no takers. We were under the impression after going up and talking to the folks that we could more than likely get it for $30,000. And then there's the further discussions. I talked to the gentleman up there and asked him to send us all the maintenance records, which we have, and we're looking through, and asked him to send me his best price, so I'd have something for you tonight, and I haven't received that, which is why we asked for permission to negotiate not to exceed 30 and see if we can beat them down a little.
Negotiate and bring it to the workshop. You're going to be there anyways.
Would have to do a meeting after, because we wouldn't be able to.
Well, we would know where we want to go anyways, buy it.
Which I don't know if it's my place, but I would recommend anyway, based on the workshop that we need to do, so we can, unless we're going to go out to bid, if we're going to make a decision on that.
How much are we spending now when we rent one of these?
About $1,600 a year. But again, we're only using it twice a year, maybe 2 weeks out of the year, maybe. And the crew has been after getting a replacement for that grader for a while. They're concerned. Some of them are definitely concerned about, we get an ice event in the middle of the winter that gets ahead of us. And then, in most cases, a grader is the only way we're going to get it off the road. So, it's a good buy for us to have, and a piece of equipment that we should replace as soon as we can anyway.
And you put some money away for that?
We put $20,000 in the budget to do as equipment purchase, which we intended to do. It was either if we went and found something, if we found a used pickup truck that was $5,000 to $8,000 that we wanted to just pay in cash, or if it was something that we originally talked about whether we could do a lease payment on an excavator or a trailer or something along those lines. There was some of those things that we hadn't really narrowed down the details when we were going through the budget. It was, I mean, because there's a list of stuff that we really need to be focusing on in terms of equipment replacement. But talking to the crew, and I'll jump ahead if it's all right, our 3 biggest things this year were the grader, because we thought it was a pretty good buy. A hot box, so we're no longer patching with cold patch in the wintertime, which is a waste of money, and a replacement for our 1-ton dump truck that is, what's off the road right now. Just leave it at that. So this is the discussion that we had, you know, I wanted to include the staff in some of these recommendations, and we, at our staff meetings, we all discussed it, and this was the approach that we wanted to bring to you, so.
So you'd use it a lot more if you had one?
I think so. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done that we can't do with a backhoe, and unless we're going to go buy an excavator, I mean, that would be the next best thing as far as I'm concerned, but the grader would be a step in the right direction, and it's not a lot of money for what we'd end up getting.
If we decide after the workshop or whatever, next time to do this, do you have a really qualified operator? I know the last one you had was a woman, and she's gone.
I don't know if I want to get into that discussion at this point.
Yeah, I kind of figure, I mean, everybody can operate it, just about that you've got, I believe.
I know that most of them have all gone through grader training, so I don't really want to talk about personnel.
Yep. Okay.
Would there be a potential to rent this out to other towns? I know if we're renting one occasionally from Lewiston, might be able to rent this one out when we're not
I think
using
everyone
it.
else around us has one.
And they already have one, so we're the only town without one, yeah.
That's my impression.
Yeah.
I can't say for sure. I mean, it may be, I don't know about Sabatis. I know Bowdoin doesn't do, I mean, they contract anyway, Lewiston, and I don't know what Durham ended up doing. I mean, that's always an option. I don't know if that's something we want to do.
There's some value there definitely in having the ice emergency response. We had a lot of problems last year with icing, so that's...
Our biggest thing is, like I said, when we've rented it in the past, it's always been, you know, we wanted to grade up the gravel roads, but we're not spending the time we need to out there cutting the shoulders back. And River Road's a prime example. If you drive out there, the shoulders are that high and the road's this high, and the shoulders all need to be cut back and ditched, and the grader's the best way to do that.
My initial point of when I looked at this was I've never seen a grader in operation in the town before. But I agree with Roger that I think there's a little more information would be helpful with this. I'd also like to see maybe the past 10 years with purchase orders where the town has rented a grader in Lewiston or wherever it may be, to see how many times we've used one. And my other thing I'd like to see next time would be a scope of work that we have in the town that this could be used for in the near future.
Not a problem.
Anything else from council? All right, be looking forward to seeing that stuff. Thank you. Next item, please.
Order 2014-178, Legal Services Bid Award.
I'll take this one.
Perfect.
We had 3 firms that submitted legal bids: Brandon Isaacson, Bernstein Shore, and Jensen, Bard, Gardner, and Henry. I had a recommendation for tonight, but I want to change that based on some more information that I obtained early this morning before I went to my meeting. Currently, we have personnel services, legal services through Brandon Isaacson. So what this would cover would just be the general legal. It would exclude bond counsel because we already have bond counsel through Eaton and Peabody. The Jensen, Baird, Gardner, and Henry, they would charge mileage to come here to any type of meetings and training. So that's going to be an expense that we would not incur with Brandon Isaacson because they're right here in the area. This $35 difference between the hourly rate, but I think we'd more than make that up with the mileage that we would be saving and not having to pay that out. And also under Brandon Isaacson, they would use, if they use their associate or the paralegal, it's quite a bit of reduced rate. So my recommendation would be to go with Brandon Isaacson. And I also did check with free workshops. Jensen, Baird would only provide one free workshop a year. Brandon Isaacson would do at least 2, and we could negotiate more than that if needed. And the workshops would include anything from council and board and committee assignments and what the roles are for the different committees. And if we ever had a large appeal, they would walk us through the process of an appeal, like a zoning board or so forth. They have the legal expertise to give the committee or the board at that time the legal issues that they need to, so that they can make a good decision on the appeal. And that is expensive. We've had to do that in the past, and we've always had to pay for that service to educate the board before an appeals process. And as the boards change, sometimes you have to do that annually, you know. And it doesn't happen too often, but at least, you know, they'll provide that for free, whereas Jensen Baird, they're only going to provide one a year. So based on all that, I'd like to change my recommendation and recommend Brandon Isaacson. And then we'll have everything with one firm, with the exception of bond counsel.
Where's Jensen Baird based out of?
Portland.
Portland, okay, yeah, so it's a longer drive than.
Exactly.
Brandon Isaacson is right in Lewiston.
And, you know, and 2 of them live right nearby here, too, so.
And Brandon Isaacson
Dan
has been
goes right
very
by.
good, and we've worked
Yeah.
with him in the past. And
Dan drives right by to go to work, so it makes sense.
It does.
One of the big points that I wrote down when I was reviewing the proposal, other than the 2 free workshops and they won't charge for the travel, but the third was that they have experience with school departments. And if you look through their references, a lot of them are school departments and withdrawal committees. So if we ever went into a position, I think it would be a good asset to us if we get into a position with the school.
When Callis went through the withdrawal from the AOS, I had to call around to get recommendations for attorneys that dealt with that, and Brandon Isaacson is the name that I was given from people down in this area. So that's who Callis actually contracted with, and it was Dan Stockford that did the work for Callis. So yeah, you're getting that too.
Any questions, comments from council? At this time, I would open the floor for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the bid from Brandon Isaacson.
You have a second?
Council?
A second.
All right, so we have a motion from Councilor Bickford and a second from Councilor Mativier. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
6-0, order passed.
Thank you very much. And the next item, please.
Order 2014-179, request to go to RFP for general engineering services, hot box and pickup truck.
You're up, Ryan.
Diane, break in between now. I think this is it tonight. We've been talking, and similar to what you did with the legal services, we'd like to do the same thing with consulting engineering services, with the stormwater permit that we need requirements from the stormwater permit that we need to meet, as well as the recently approved or settled consent agreement with the sewer department, and then we budgeted for a sewer department comprehensive system evaluation and asset management program development. We've had a couple different projects where we've had to go out to bid for, and we prefer to go out to bid with long-term contract with one firm that can do all that stuff when we need to. Again, similar to what you have with legal, and so we'd like permission to do that. Want me to take it one item at a time or just keep going?
Do whatever you want.
The other item, again, as I alluded to earlier, was we'd like to go out to bid for a hot box. It's an item that we've discussed internally for quite a few years. This would allow us the possibility to use asphalt in the wintertime to patch potholes and whatnot at $70 a ton versus $140 a ton or $170 a ton, I believe, for cold patch, which everybody knows how well cold patch stays in the road. So again, we'd like the permission to go out to bid and put together a set of specifications based on what some of the local municipalities and the state uses to get something that we can have at the shop. We plug it in at night. The next morning, we've got warm mix asphalt that we can go out and patch holes with at a fraction of the cost. And the third thing was the replacement for truck 204. It's a 2001 one-ton pickup truck that is in dire need of replacement in terms of just rot. And we'd like to replace it with a heavy-duty four-wheel drive pickup truck that we can put a plow and a sander in and take the sander and the plow, maybe not the plow, but take the sander out of the other one-ton that we have that's a four-wheel drive plow truck, because it's just, we've already had to weld the frame on that one because it's overloaded. It's not the right truck for the duty that it's being put under. So again, that was, with the money that we had budgeted, those are the items that we'd like to go out to bid for, and we're pretty confident that based on what we anticipate the prices being and the financing that we can get on that stuff, that we can come back with a package of equipment that'll really improve our operation within the budget that we have. So,
Do you want to go out for a new truck?
Yep.
Okay, we discussed which ones not to buy.
Oh, yes. We've already, it'd be pretty easy to address that.
For the general engineering services, could you give a couple examples of what that would entail?
I believe we also, and I'm sorry I can't speak too much to this, I may have to have Tracy ask, but I mean, there's some CDBG design work that we wanted to include as well. So it would basically be whatever the municipality needs for engineering services or support for projects or whatnot. And again, there's 3 or 4 items right now that we would include in the proposal, but it's basically, we're trying to find one firm that is, again, it's just like legal. If we have some silly question, we can call them and we know exactly what it's going to cost for them to give us an answer.
What are those 3 or 4 items?
The sewer system evaluation and asset management program development, the SEP, which is a supplemental environmental project that we have to do in conjunction with the consent agreement we did. And I believe it would be the CDBG. Would you may I?
Okay.
We'll get into this more in our planning, but basically it's what you've already approved for us to go out for RFP for the design and engineering work so that we can go for the CDBG grant in January. So the idea is combine everything together and hopefully get a better deal.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions from council?
Just ballpark, what do those hot boxes go for?
There's not too many numbers running around right now. I think it's in the 30 to 40 range.
And that goes on a pickup truck, or?
No, it's a trailer. It's its own self-contained unit.
Yeah.
You put hold like, it all depends on the size. I mean, it'll hold 2, 3, 4 ton. We're probably looking in the 3 to 4 ton range, just based on, our size and needs.
Yep.
But you would buy hot top now, lay it out, break it up, put it in a pile, and then this winter time, if we needed it, you throw it in the box the night before, you set it on a timer, and then the next morning when we come in, it'll be like hot mix asphalt that you buy at Crooker right now, or Pike, or whoever else. The state's had a bunch of them. We've been to the auction a couple times trying to find one there, and they're pretty well used up when they leave there. But
Yep.
30 to 40,000. Do we have that in the budget?
we have a lease payment amount. That's what we're looking to do, is finance these 3 items that we talked about.
All right, perfect. I was like, I don't remember that amount.
No, we didn't. No, I mean, that was what we talked, because we're looking at buying an excavator, which could be 60, 70,000, and, then the lease payment on that based on whatever terms and financing we can get, so.
Okay.
I mean, quite honestly, the savings we have in cold patch will help offset the payment we'd have to make anyway. I'd be willing to bet.
Okay, perfect.
I think you'd have improved quality of service there, too, and that we all know how the roads get made in the winter with those potholes that you put the cold patch in and it just bounces back out the next day. So, everybody waits for spring. It would be a nice improvement.
All right, I would open the floor for a motion to authorize Ryan and the staff to go out for RFP.
I'll make a motion for that.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Would it pass 6-0?
Thank you, and next item, please.
Order 2014-180 to set the public hearing date for the energy conservation contracts.
All right.
Yeah, and we'd like to do that on Tuesday, the 16th, and I assume you'd want to do that right here at your meeting, the public hearing. And later on, we're going to schedule an informational session, and that'll be held up at the school. Dan Pittman had sent some revised language today. I have not had time to look at it because I've been in Augusta for a meeting. So I'll get that out to you just as soon as I've had a chance to review it compared to what he had sent us a week and a half ago. And also, Ryan and I met with Rick Green at the school and Heather, and we're coming up with a brochure for this. And Rick sent that via email to me today, but I have not had time to open that up. And once I look at that, I'll send that off to you too, and that'll be made available to the public.
Perfect. Any discussion from council? All right. I would open the floor for a motion to set the public hearing date to September 16th, 2014, here at our town council meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. I'll second that.
We have a motion from Councilor Bickford, second from Councilor Lunt. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Thank you, Diane, for taking care of that. Next item, please.
Order 2014-181, the treasurer's stipend.
Do you have anything you want to add, or?
No, I
Okay.
just want to say that there is quite a bit of responsibility that comes with the job. There are no overlapping duties, and this is required by statute that we have a treasurer, and the money is in the budget because she has been getting this stipend in this amount, $7,800, since January. So when the budget was put together before I came here, that was also included. So there's money in the budget to cover it. That's all I have on the subject.
As you all know, one of my biggest setbacks with this whole thing was deciding how much does that position get paid. And it really wasn't clear, and without doing a lot of digging, and it's still, it's not as fuzzy, but I have more light to it. Diane had provided us as a council with a Maine Municipal Association survey of finance director salaries, stipends for tax collector, and stipend or pay for treasurers. So when I was looking through it, I just got to find my note here. I found only 2 out of the state that were on the survey that have a treasurer that gets a stipend that is separate from their salary. And one was in York with a population of 13,865 people for $3,000. And the second one was in Bowdoin, right here over in Saginaw County, with a population of just shy of $3,000, 3,000 people for a stipend of $3,000. So it's very clear to me, or more clear, I should say, that a stipend for this would be in the $3,000 ballpark range. I do know that in the budget there was $7,800, but there was some stuff that happened, and we're approving this now. So I'm having a hard time with that amount. I think that we should provide a stipend of $3,000 for that position. I don't know what council thinks. Open it up for the floor for more discussion.
Seems fair to me. I think that's a reasonable increase.
I believe that previous stipend was for both.
No,
Tax
that was for
collector?
one.
That was for one.
Just
There was
one?
another one for the tax collector.
Really?
And that went away when I assumed the duties.
It was a significant increase. And I also looked at it as from perspective of the position of a finance director. If they were, maybe our position was underpaid compared to other positions. So I looked. And just our neighboring community, Topsom, they paid their finance director just under $54,000, which is about $10,000 less than we paid ours with this survey. So I don't think that our finance director is being underpaid, for lack of a better term. Any other discussion from council?
No, I'd have to agree with Councilor Pesky.
I know the chair typically doesn't make a motion, but I will make a motion to set the stipend for the treasurer at $3,000 per year.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Due to personal reasons, I am going to withdraw from this vote. I haven't never done this in 4 years that I've been on council, but I feel as though that I should.
I also have a question. If Jessica doesn't like the number, when she says, well, I don't want the job, then what are you going to do?
Well, I think we need to go back to the drawing board at that point, but I also think that, from me looking at it, that we set the salary, and it's kind of like when we negotiated with the town manager. We negotiated with her, and we set her salary. So I think that this is, I think this is appropriate to do. That's my own personal opinion. Any other discussion? Does Councilor Bickford have to do anything for abstention, or they'll just be part of the roll call or the vote?
You abstain because there's a conflict of interest?
Okay.
correct?
All right. All those in favor? All those opposed?
501.
And abstained? Roger. All right. So 501. Next item, please.
Order 2014-182, a conditional victuals license for the Burger Shack.
All right, I just got to find that paper.
If you'd like, I can explain.
Yes, please, if you could, while I'm trying to find that in my packet here.
Okay. The health officer has inspected this new establishment and found that it's in compliance except for the owner needed to take her ServSafe class to obtain her food certification, which she is going to attend on September the 11th. The health officer is recommending the council grant Roxanne Dexter a 45-day conditional license so that she'll not have to cease operating on September the 12th to when the council meets again on September the 16th. I guess that's generally. The Burger Shack is located at Carville's Flea Market.
So this is basically given the extension, so they wouldn't have to cease.
Right, and Christy Bourget, our health officer, indicated that the state granted them a 30-day conditional license as well, and our days overlap by 5 days, so I felt if you granted the 45, it would be, both licenses would end on the same date if they needed to.
Perfect. Any questions from council regarding that? All right. So entertain a motion, or to open the floor for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
All right. First, we have a second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Perfect. Thank you. Next item, please.
Under other business, planning updates.
Roger, do you want to, oh, I was looking ahead to the wrong thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Is that all right for everybody? Yeah. I apologize. I had it in my head this morning to do printouts so you guys could follow along, but you'll just have to watch the show. So the purpose is we haven't had a chance to kind of give the council and barely the town manager, new town manager really, of the kind of the big picture again, where we've been these past 6 months and where we'd like to be headed in the next year or so in terms of our planning and economic development and code enforcement goals. They're all starting to overlap in lots of ways these days. So I'm just going to spend just the briefest of a few slides just to do that overview. Some of you will have heard this before a few times, but it's always helpful to, again, say, well, why are we doing this again? What's this all coming from? I'm just going to focus on these are the goals for the next year or so we're working on, and exactly kind of where the process is now. So again, where are we coming from? What we're working on now is based on things that started with the comprehensive plan came out of a lot of public forums, both when we did our 196 community forums, as well as some of the community forums that happened before I was here with other community development, economic development efforts. We also have many of our current documents, such as the downtown vision. We're working with those kinds of, that same vision and those same strategies that are called for. And most recently, and the one that the Route 196 committee is tasked with, is looking at implementing that vision and that master plan for the corridor plan, which was adopted last year. This is also back from February. I think this was the first time when the 196 committee really kind of pulled it all together and said, these are our priorities, and this is what we'd like to propose. This was presented to the council just at the beginning, kind of early stages of thinking about the budget. Well, if we were going to propose something, what would it be? So the committee was able to list out what its priorities were, and this was where the initial proposal was made of requesting $50,000 for seed money to be able to go after grants to do some of this implementation. Also worth just thinking about the context, noting that there's been a lot of things going on this last couple of years, and all of that really is important to the kind of momentum we want to keep going with this year. Over the last couple of years, planning board and code enforcement, in terms of process and administration, a lot of things has come a long way. A lot of growth and a lot of good things, and as a result, we are seeing some really good results with dealing with new businesses, new development proposals, and that seems to be going really well right now. We also, of course, had a big effort there getting through the visioning process for the 196 corridor and figuring out how to tackle implementation, how to move from a plan to something that would make change. We've been fortunate to have partners like Positive Change Lisbon who are coming on board with some of these supporting efforts, the banners and the spring cleanup and other things that they're doing with the community and businesses. We've, of course, gone through and were able to develop the design standards, which was one of definitely the high priorities that came out of the 196 plan. And the planning board also tackled signage, which was, as we went through the design ordinance, we realized that signage was another piece of that needed to be addressed separately. We're also very fortunate that we've got that 1.8, I rounded up, that's yes, okay, 1.8 mile river trail that's just being completed. We've got the construction of the Durham Bridge on tap. We've got some movement to try to get, probably not this year, but maybe in 2015, 2016, improvements to the intersection at Main Street, Lisbon Street. And of course, the school gymnasium. So there's a lot of activity going on in town right now, and we're trying to say, these things we're working towards, again, build on that momentum and sustain it, and then try to leverage all of these good things into some real investment and real improvements. So the goals, and these are pretty much where the 196 implementation committee was last winter. We know we want to adopt an updated downtown plan, and we want to include both Lisbon Falls as well as Lisbon Village. That's a distinction now. We are getting really close to a new facade program, and there are funds available already that were in a dedicated account that Tracy was able to kind of carve or rediscover that hasn't been used in a while. We are also really hoping this year that we can get a TIF, tax increment finance district, a downtown TIF established, because as we're making these investments and improvements, we're kind of missing out on capturing some of those funds that we can use for economic development and public improvements. It's a very, very important tool that a lot of communities are using now, and so we're really mindful that this is the time to make sure we kind of move and get that in place. To make the local investments a lot easier. Our other goals, with the updated downtown plan discussions this last spring and summer, part of this is we're not really adding a lot of new, other than we're adding the second village, but we're not adding a lot of new strategies. we're carrying forward a lot of existing strategies and vision that still hold true, but the thing moving forward is how do we get better at promoting and better initiatives to really invigorate those two villages. That's kind of a piece that we're going to have to figure out how to work on. The downtown plan itself can give some guidance, but ultimately it's the people and the legwork that get that kind of thing done. So that'll be kind of an ongoing effort. And then the big one that we definitely want to talk about tonight is funding and implementing a streetscape and pedestrian project. We've targeted the Lisbon Falls Village, and the focus of our effort is gearing up for a CDBG Community Development Block Grant, Downtown Revitalization Grant. So where are we now? The planning board, the planning board is mostly been a supporting sort of backup role to a lot of these 196 efforts, but they did just sign off on the draft sign ordinance, which you'll be seeing soon. And I think generally they're just going to be plugging away on which ordinances are going to need attention, looking again at that same selection of planning documents that I showed you earlier. With the implementation committee, we're focusing on programs and also trying to get a physical improvement project completed sometime in the next year. So the programs would be, having that facade program on tap, getting a TIF district, and updating the downtown plan. And although we did discuss Lisbon Village improvements, as we've discussed before with the council, there are a lot of much stronger reasons to do a project in Lisbon Falls this year. With the downtown plan update, again, both villages, the process is right now is the draft is on my computer being developed, and I have tentatively told Tracy I'd like to see it on her desk for her first review this Friday. The goal would be that we could get it to the 196 committee and to the council as a draft this month to take a look at, and then maybe in early October feel comfortable with going ahead and adopting the update. We do need to address blight conditions in the downtown plan, and this will be to make us eligible for grants and also for a downtown TIF. So this is going to be integrated into the plan and will also be a part of the process we go through with the CDBG grant application. And then ongoing, again, how are we going to address the piece of, we're making these efforts to make improvements, but how are we engaging business and the communities in the downtown areas to make revitalization actually possible. Facade program, hopefully we'll have a little bit more of that soon to be able to share with you as well. We're looking at Tracy is mostly doing the work on this one. She's been looking at the model programs from other communities, talking with DECD. We do have funds available, again, from previously acquired funds through CDBG, through DECD. And those are available now. We just don't have the program structured right now the way we want to be able to use that moving forward. But we've picked a few models, and she's been talking with DECD, and I think we could be pretty close to unleashing a fund or a program for facades and improvements. And definitely those kinds of facade improvements and design assistance was something that the 196 plan talked about trying to push forward with. This would also really help in support of going forward with the Downtown Revitalization Grant. With the TIF, again, we'd have to structure it to, say what kind of public improvements and economic development activities those funds would be dedicated for. And the process really requires working very closely with the state. There are very specific guidelines, but the downtown TIF program is one of the more flexible programs. There are a lot of different kinds of TIFs that get used around the state, and the community has used TIF programs before. With the Lisbon Falls project, again, when we had these discussions with staff and the committee this winter, we were looking at, well, if we know we want to do Lisbon Falls streetscape and pedestrian project, what would be the extent? We wanted to talk about what might be the costs. We did some very preliminary cost estimates, and this is all in preparation for thinking about, well, if we need to request some budget money, and if we're thinking about going towards a grant, what's going to be, how do we know what to base it off of? So we looked at kind of all of the, or a good portion of the Lisbon Falls area on 196 on Lisbon Road, but we know that we probably can only fund just a portion of that because $200,000 to $400,000 really does not go as far as one would like to think on streetscape and pedestrian projects. But the best source lining up right now is going to be the CDBG Downtown Revitalization Grant. Other DECD programs for grants aren't going to be as good a fit. You won't be able to get things like, you may not be able to get street trees or lighting, which is part of some of the things that were carried forward when we talked about the 196 plan. Right now we are looking at other funding sources. I'll talk about that in a minute as well, because the more we can kind of explore those opportunities and kind of pair up on other grants and match grants against grants, whenever we can do that, that just maximizes our spending. And as we just discussed too, and you guys just approved, that general engineering contract will now absorb what we'd like to, so we'd still like to move forward, hopefully October, if it works out, to really get started on the design sooner rather than later. We'll have a lot better idea of exactly what kind of improvements we'd be talking about when this winter comes along for the application. We'll have better numbers, and we'll be able to go forward looking to say, well, that we know these numbers are what we're shooting for. Let's fine-tune this in terms of our in-kind work. Let's look at some other options for things that we can't include in the budget. We're broadly trying to include as much as we can in the preliminary design. Again, what gets implemented will just be a factor of when we put the final costs together and we have a final budget of how much match we're going to have and how much we can go for, what will fit in. Ideally, you would try to get the lights and the benches and the trees, as well as improved sidewalks and crosswalks. The connection to the trail will already be there. Future trails could be a consideration, but I don't know if we're going to get that far into discussion this year. And then along with dealing with the sidewalks and the pedestrian, kind of hand in hand with that is the access management, where are the driveway entrances, where are vehicles entering and exiting the road, and where is there, and there's very limited on-street parking. It's really only a couple of spaces out across from Fern's new place. So there are a few of those things we want to include, and we will have to coordinate, or the engineering consultant and the town will have to coordinate with DOT to make sure that it meets with their approval when we get through that process. This was the same map that I forwarded in the memo previously. We were looking at from School Street to Birch Street, most of the first kind of village core area, and then we're probably looking at 3 phases based on our preliminary cost estimates, looking at what the costs could be for, again, streetscape and pedestrian and incidental road improvements. We'd like to start with that focus area between Davis Street and Union, where we got the trail connection coming in, and look to include that Main Street, Lisbon Street, Canal Street intersection, with the anticipation that DOT will also be able to kind of piggyback on that and make improvements to that intersection. So we have the $50,000 that is secured or allocated right now, gets us a $200,000 project as is. Initially, we had originally planned that we would be able to use the funds that were designated this year's budget for the trail completion, that paid for the last part of the trail. We were going to use that for match, and now we know that we can't. So we are re-examining what are the other in-kind funds and other small grants, Project Canopy for trees or other things like that. The projects have been, the grants have been $400,000 in the last several years. It's probably going to be a maximum of $400,000 this year, but that they have also done that where if you only propose a $200,000 project, it doesn't mean you're on the hook for the rest of the match. If you're saying it's a $200,000 project and you get the points, they're going to try to give you the project. So we're going to try to start with 200,000 and work our way up, and that will still fit within the criteria of the program. And we are initially kind of thinking about DOT has traditionally had a program called Quality Communities, which is basically your bike pedestrian-oriented kind of projects. That a lot of communities, that's kind of your next best funding source for projects and implementation. However, that program is currently a little up in the air because the director has just left, and there's no movement yet to replace that director anytime soon. So we're not sure logistically, between the chaos of federal funding sources and Maine DOT right now, we're not sure if that's going to be able, if we're going to be able to make that pan out or not. But it would be a good sort of backup plan or a secondary option to be able to pay for some of those improvements with those grant funds if for some reason we can't get the CDBG grant. Our next steps, what we're currently looking at, is we need to get the downtown plan adopted, and we need to designate the blight areas, again, to be eligible for funds. We need to get going on the engineering and design, because the closer we can be to a preliminary or even final design when we get to this winter, when we start the application process, the better that looks on their application, and the better we're going to be in terms of getting the grant award. And as I said, we're continuing to work on the funding opportunities. Actually, the first week, I think Diane gave us a couple of great suggestions, and so a fresh set of eyes on this has been helpful in terms of thinking about how to make the funding happen. And all of this is not to look for asking for more money. It's looking to say, where are we spending money already that we can say, this can count as match. We're already doing this, but let's count it towards our match and maximize things. And it's still going to be very important in support of that grant application to show that we're working on things like the facade program, like a TIF program, because a big part of winning this kind of an application is showing that the town is doing things where we're not just throwing our hat in because we think it'd be fun to get a streetscape project. It's that this is an important part of what we've been working on, and the town is not just doing this one thing, it's doing a lot of things. So that really does help make it look like we're serious, and it will get us those extra points when it comes time to making the application. Tentatively, timeline-wise, where we're thinking, again, we're the RFP, hopefully for engineering, will be going out. We believe that the CDBG program for this coming year will be finalized by the end of this month. So then we're not just hoping that it's what it is based on last year's. We actually will know what the exact criteria and funding amounts will be. And of course, we want to finalize that draft downtown plan. If we can begin looking at that design and engineering in October, that would be great. But October and really November is still looking at what else do we need to do to make sure that we're ready for the application for the community development block grant, getting the design estimates ready, and then the first major deadline moving towards implementation for basically next year and getting the grant is the clock starts in January, where we submit a letter of intent that says we have match funds set aside, this is our cost estimates, and we intend to submit the application. And then really, I think the application goes in February. I believe it goes in February. Again, we'll have to confirm that timeline when the final program details come out. And then in this, sometime following in the spring, we would find out if we get the award. We really feel like Lisbon has a very strong position. It's a competitive grant. There won't be just one other town going after this. There will be a few others. But we have a lot of things going for us. I think it's about making sure that we've planned ahead. We have a well-written grant, and we're doing all the things that we can do to get the extra points. We get points for just being a downtown network community. That status has not changed. But this year is a really strong year to go after this application. We do have the option, if we didn't get the grant, we won't have spent the allocated $50,000 that could be carried over to reapply the following year, which a lot of communities will do, or we may be able to line up something again through DOT or another funding source that we might be able to pick up and say, we've got this match and this in-kind, how can we make this project move forward right away and not sit around and let this year's work not be fruitful. So that's generally where we're at. Kind of moving forward too, we've done a lot of communicating in terms of trying to coordinate with the Route 186 committee and planning board in between staff. But something we haven't done probably as much would be more regular memos and updates to the council through the town manager. So something kind of monthly, more bi-monthly, more than once a month if we have real news to report. But just keeping everybody in the loop in terms of where the project is going forward. In terms of when you'll see us specifically, we want to get the downtown plan adopted, and you guys will see us for that. When we get into the design and engineering process for the Lisbon Falls project, we'll want to be integrating or keeping the council updated on the process there. That right now, I believe I'm assuming that the 196 committee will essentially be kind of carrying forward that design effort unless council or staff wants to do it differently. That's sort of the most logical group right now to kind of work with the engineer on that. Hopefully this fall too we'll have something to share with you on a proposed facade program and how to move forward with that. And of course later on, as after election day, we'll be getting into drafting up the application for CDBG and the letter of intent, and you'll get updates on that. That is my update.
Thank you, Fern. Are there any comments, questions from the council for Amanda or the? I know a couple members of the Route 196 Master Plan Committee are here, or steering committee, whatever you want to call it. Any questions or anything? I know that when I am available, because Thursdays are tough days for me, I like to attend your guys' meetings because I take a lot away from it, and you guys are an active group that is really going after that goal. And I think it's important just for the public to know that the $50,000 that Amanda referenced through her presentation tonight is already in the budget. I know a lot of people have misconceptions of what that money is for or where it's going to go. I've got a lot of questions about that, but just so the general public knows in for the TV that is already in the budget set aside for that. One question I did have for you, and maybe more for Tracy. While I've been walking the new path a couple of times, I've had several people stop me every time and mention signage and saying, where are we having any signage here or what's going on with that? So I was hoping maybe we can sneak in an update on signage if there's any.
Yeah, there's signage coming.
And in ways of the signage, again, there will be mile markers as far as on that. With the Greenway designation, they also have signage, so they have arrows, so we'd be able to put out, and those are all free. That kind of helps as far as marketing that it is part of the East Coast Greenway. I've been trying to look at different signage and get some different estimates as far as that, because again, with the Healthy Main Street grant, I'm able to kind of utilize those funds to help out with that. But I've had a difficult time in trying to get something that was really going to match, and it might be that we look at more of a kiosk type of thing. We will have a resource guide that will have a map that will, and probably I'm looking for about 1,000 of those to be printed out, and they will be available for public so they can see the map of the trails. But in working with Verler, and it's going to be, Verler and the Conservation Commission and that group on on how to go about within signage and what we need. It's really a work in progress. I mean, they're still kind of working on the trail, so the idea of it is that we don't want to start going in and just putting in all kinds of stuff without going through those steps. So it's really having people be a little bit patient, because the Conservation Committee is really going to set the tone. They, looked at the mile markers. They're looking at, we're also looking at dog receptacles and trash, bins to put out there as well along the trail. Again, they're looking at that. So I really, Ryan has me working directly with them on what their needs are for the trail, and it will be a slow process as far as I'm going on what we need. I'm not sure what you were asked for in regards to signage, what people are really looking for.
Just, a signage saying the trail is this long, or where it goes,
Right.
basically.
Yeah, and sometimes I've seen some things where you do like a history type of thing. I mean, you can take along the river, and you can do some beautiful, as part of with the Main Street group, and they do that as kind of like a walk-in history tour where you can have plaques made up, and there could be some sort of significance about this one spot, and you give a little history. You could go down, whether it had to do with the mill or whatever, and could give a history. There's all kinds of different things that we can do, but I think it's going to be over time, and again, in working with Verler and that group to make sure that we're meeting their needs as well on what they want to see.
Perfect. Sounds like you have something in motion, so thank you. Any questions from council? All right. Thank you very much for your update, Amanda. Next item, please.
Is the Utilities Committee update.
Roger.
Me and Diane talked before the meeting, and we're going to probably have a council, water commissioners, and utilities, the whole thing, regular meeting with everybody.
Okay.
And to give Eaton Peabody direction on which way to go.
Yeah, I think at this point in time, Eaton and Peabody would like to meet with both to get the direction so that everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want to do that when they have their meeting. When they meet on Mondays?
I think it would probably be easier to invite them to one of our meetings.
Or invite them to, okay.
Because their facilities are pretty small for
Yeah,
meeting there.
very small.
So like maybe on the 16th, we could invite them to come, and then somebody, a representative from Eaton and Peabody. Okay, good.
All right. Now, just for the general public to know, this is a study that the Utilities Committee has asked to be completed or performed by Eaton and Peabody to study to see if there would be savings, making a water sewer district, combining the water department with the town, the water department to stay by itself, provide a pyramid of what a structure would look like doing a water sewer district. So this all came about from the two bills that were sent to the legislature a couple years ago, one to dissolve the water department and one for the water department to stay self-sufficient or standing by itself. So this is the committee that we had to put together to find some common ground and figure out what we want to do. So just so the general public, you're not in the dark of what this actually is. Anything else from council regarding that? All right. Next item, please.
Town Manager's report.
Just two things. We probably want to schedule that workshop, the one for the server upgrade and copier, and also for the state surplus property. And did you want to do that next Tuesday night on the 9th?
I think we...
Would you like to start at 6 rather than 7, where it's just a workshop, or do you want to schedule it at 7?
I'd rather do it sooner than later, so definitely the next week.
Yep.
Up to me. But
I prefer 7 if anybody else has any.
Okay.
I think 7 works.
It's just better to be consistent.
Yep.
Okay.
Please.
So we'll do that. And the other thing is I just wanted to give you an update on the Town of Lisbon versus Kimball lawsuit or case, court case. That went to court on August 20th, 2014, and the Town of Lisbon prevailed in that case. I'm not going to get into the background because I wasn't here when that happened. Somebody else might want to, but anyway, the judgment was for the Town of Lisbon in the amount of $32,500, which was the amount of the check given to Kurt Kimball on behalf of Atlantic Commercial Cleaners. So we prevailed in court on that one. And I don't know how long this has been out there, but...
Long time.
Dylan, were you born then?
Just barely.
But I thought for the record, we would have that, that decision made public. That's all I have.
Great, thank you very much, Diane. All right, next item, please.
Audience participation for new items. At this time, those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward to address items that are not on the agenda for this meeting.
I would open the floor for audience participation, and a reminder, this is for agenda items only.
Non-agenda.
I mean, yeah, I'm sorry, non-agenda only.
We know what you meant.
Thank you, it's getting late.
Dorothy Fitzgerald again, Lisbon Falls. Some of these came up in Amanda Bunker's report, so I hope you will abide with me. Last Friday, I was at the library, and Diane Nadeau had just received the Times Record, and she showed me this brochure. Came out in the Times Record. It was enclosed, and it's a business directory with businesses. Well, I'm sure these ads were sold, I'm sure. Is it possible through the development department to develop this type of a brochure to be included with newspapers at no cost to these businesses, our local businesses? It is just as important, if not more important, to retain present businesses as it is to try to recruit new businesses. These local businesses are paying taxes, real estate taxes. They're paying personal property taxes. I think it's time that they start getting something for the money that they're spending in real estate taxes. I think it would be nice to do if there must be, I would think that there would be some money in the development department to develop something like this. I guess that's about it. But also Luigi's, what's happening? Amanda Bunker mentioned in her presentation blight. Well, if there isn't blight, it's in Lisbon Village. The former Graziano's property actually looked better with the buildings there than it does with a vacant lot and the waist-high weeds. And not only that, there's a beautiful brick sidewalk, if you could see it, but for the weeds. I know that the Verla and the Public Works Department is really, really busy doing a lot of things. But Lisbon Village really everyone concentrates on Lisbon Falls, and I live in Lisbon Falls. But we have Lisbon Village as well. There was a nice article that came out in the Sun Journal Sundays about our trail. But evidently the trail ends on Davis Street in Lisbon rather than Lisbon Falls. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Yes, Need, good evening. My questions, non-agenda items, are what are the cost of studies? Because I've been doing an audit with the town report, and I don't see a line item for these studies. I hear a lot about them. We tend to commission them, but I don't know what the costs are. And also on the town salary report, there are a lot of individuals that stand up to the podium and speak with authority, yet they're not on the salary report, nor do they appear in other areas where we have accountability on how much we're paying them for their professional services. Now, number 4, where is the recruitment for new businesses? If we don't have jobs, no matter how much shrubbery we plant, it's not going to mean much for tax bases. The grant sourcing, now, it's all well and good to go for grants. I have no problem with grants in regards to, like, if it was a private fundraiser. But when you're talking about a public CDBG grant, you are talking taxpayer money, because that has to be budgeted through the state, through an entity of the state, which is a bureaucracy, to disseminate to towns. Now, I don't know if everyone's going trail, fantastic, but we also have approximately 7 trails at Beaver Park, over 330 acres. We also have a 1-mile dedicated trail to group participation that we've already paid for. So before we go for more grants, could we look at using the resources we already have and already have paid for in Beaver Park? They're already delineated, they're numbered, you know where you're at if you call 911. All those issues have already been resolved. We've already paid for it. And we don't have land easement problems, waivers this, conservation that, Maine DOT, because the state does have what they call a 5 to 10-year plan. And each community is part of that 5 to 10-year plan, and I don't hear that at all in the other part of the planning piece. I thank you for your time.
Any other audience participation for new items?
Don Fellows from the Lisbon side of the thing, from the blighted side of town, as some would call it. From the Route 196 Master Plan Standing Committee, whatever we are, I'd like to comment that the master plan was developed with the idea of gaining resources for the public, for the town, to help increase businesses. Unless there are many independent pots of money out there that we don't know about, that money is either going to come from taxes or it's going to come from some version of a grant. Not to counter anybody, but CDBG is a grant that's going to go to somebody. I don't care what anybody's thinking about that type of thing is, but it's going to go to somebody. And we might as well be the recipient. I agree that I think that the Master Plan Committee needs to continue to work on improvements besides just what is low-hanging fruit. The plan was developed, or what we have going was developed because we know that something is happening from the state level in the Lisbon Falls area first, and that's that intersection. So it made every sense in the world that we should focus on that to see what we could do as the Master Planning Committee to help implement the master plan in that area while it's happening, yet not leave out Lisbon Village. And that's what this is all about. And that's what Amanda's been talking about. I'm sure you knew that. And I hope the public does too.
Thank you, Don. Anyone else for audience participation? See none? Next item, please.
Council response to new business?
I'll do the same as we did for the audience participation at the beginning of the meeting. I'll respond to the questions that I have written down here. Some I will not respond to, some I will. When I'm done, if council has anything else I've left out, please feel free to pipe in. Dot, your question was about creating some sort of brochure for businesses free of cost. I'm not the economic community development director. That's not what I'm going to school for, so I'm not going to answer you if that can happen or not. But Tracy's in the audience, and at a later date, I'm sure if that can be done, she will give us an update on that, because she is right on top of her game with a lot of things going on. So I don't know, but I'm sure if it can happen, it will. For your comment for Luigi's, I'm not sure about that. It's actually a question I've written down to ask the town manager from a previous meeting I had, but I'm sure once we get an update on that, I will give an update to you at the next council meeting so everybody will know. Mrs. Berry, you asked about the cost, a cost study that we have. A lot of that is done out of personnel, or not personnel, but professional services, and this is something new that we as a council are going after to get RFPs, for example, the general engineering, so we know how much this stuff will cost. So I can't say that there's actual cost studies, but it's in the budget, and when we go through it every single year, I know I always ask, well, what does this budget line entail? And there's always a brief description of what it is, and a lot of professional services come out of that line. The town salary report, you talked about people with authority. I'm sure mentioning our town planner that is paid $20,000 per year for her service. I'm not sure if she's in the actual report, but I know that she is in the budget line as $20,000 for her salary that goes to our company. So I do know that is accounted for, because we had a big discussion over it this year. Recruitment for new businesses, I'm not going to go into that whole topic, but that's why we have an Economic Community Development Director, and we have Amanda on staff now to help us with policies, and also Diane is very well educated in that line of business. And the public taking a CBD grant, I agree with Dawn that if I don't agree that grants should be out there, but if somebody's going to get the money and somebody's going to benefit from it, it might as well be Lisbon. That's my personal opinion, and that's why I voted in favor for that $50,000 seed money to be set aside. And then Beaver Park, I know from talking with Verla and throughout the budget season that she is focused on advertising for that, for Beaver Park. And I know Tracy is working on stuff with her that I've seen to advertise and get Beaver Park out there. So it's a work in progress. And then for the 5 to 10 year state plan that they have, I know from attending the Route 196 committee meetings that Amanda and Tracy have mentioned that many times. You're not going to hear that tonight in the update because it's not a time and place for us to get into nitty-gritty details, but it is mentioned a lot, and it's always in the back of their minds whenever we're talking about stuff from the committee. And then Dawn's stuff, you really didn't have any questions. You were very blunt and explained yourself very well. Anyone else have anything else to add?
I think you got it.
Good job, Dylan.
See none? Next item, please.
Counselor Communications.
Any counselor wishing to have anything brought up, discuss anything? See none? The only thing I had was the IT workshop, if we want to set that. Did you want to do that on the same night?
On the same night, yeah. Let's do
So
both.
on the 9th?
Yep, September 9th at 7 PM. We'll do both.
Do you think, well, that would actually be 3. That would be the water commissioners, the state surplus, and the IT. I don't know if we could do that all in one night. Might want to do IT a different
Oh, no,
night.
the water we were going to do on the 16th.
Oh, I'm sorry, I put that in my
Yeah.
phone wrong. Okay.
I mean, we can, yeah.
So the 9th,
I mean, we can do that on the 9th if you want, but I
think that's too much.
No, I think we ought to do it
Yeah,
on the
we need
16th.
to do
That
separate.
way, if you need to make a vote,
Yeah.
you can do it, and we don't have to schedule a meeting.
so do the IT on the 16th?
No, let's do the IT and the surplus on the 9th.
Okay.
And if you want, we can schedule a meeting right after that, so in case you want to vote on either one of those.
I think that'd be beneficial.
Yeah.
And then on the 16th, we'll do the town,
The utilities.
Utilities, yes. Thank you, I couldn't get the words out.
And I'd like to make sure we contact the vendors who applied for the
Yes.
stuff to make sure that they have a chance to be here if they're able to be here.
Yep.
And that, we
We'll
can
make sure we
make
do
sure
that.
they're, notified of it.
I think that's very important. And then any documentation that they might have to make sure that is given to the town manager's office early, especially with a lot of this IT stuff. There's a lot of documentation that I know I'm going to need to digest, so I don't like to get stuff the night of the meeting. So make sure that can be in early. I'd appreciate it. All right, any other business? All right, next item, please.
To adjourn?
Open the floor for a motion.
I'll
Make the motion.
All right, we have a first, we have a second. Any discussion? None? All those in favor?
Quarter past 6.
Thank you all, thank you.
Sign the warrants.
Yes.
Blunt don't get to sign the warrants.
What do you mean blunt?
To the point.
She's just going to shut the recorders off. She'll come right back in here and take the stuff.
John, don't forget.
Yes, dear?